All right, let me see. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay. My grandpa used to say, good enough for who it's for. I won't, that's not a very nice thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got all your papers. Thank you, Ethan. I'm going to wait. I'll hand it out at the end of class. But I loved your papers so much. And because we're not really doing something that lends itself well to, you know, an essay right now. You want to write an essay on the kings of Rome? Maybe, maybe not. It would be hard to say, should the kings of Rome have done whatever. So we're going to continue with our little creative writing, fiction writing. And I'm going to have you do the same thing, the 5 senses, but with another story. Okay, and then maybe the next time let it be a story of your choice or something.
Yeah. I'll make it peaceful.
But we'll talk about that when Julia comes later. You read a lot of material. You guys are reading a lot for me. Thank you. I know that the reading volume is up a bit, but hopefully it's not super challenging. And most of the Josephus book is familiar material. Yeah, Ella?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Just checking on the Josephus reading for last week. It was to chapter 38, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. But should have taken you through David and Goliath. Mm-hmm. Right? Right? Okay. Let's go ahead and start and dig into the section that we read for.
I haven't really read it. I just read it and know what I know about it. And
oh my
well, I don't recommend that. Here's the thing, Kyle. We think we know things. It's like saying, I've already read the Bible once, so I'm just going to skim it. And I realize that Josephus is not inspired literature. I don't mean to put them in the same category, but yet reminding ourselves of these stories just because, oh, I know that. You don't know when God's going to have some detail jump out at you because you need to hear it.
Yes. Like these stories that you know you've heard like 100 times.
Okay.
I'm not going to read that story again. Like David and Goliath.
Lord.
I've heard the story.
I cannot put my stamp of approval on that. I think you should read it again.
Okay.
I think you should read it again, but that's, I could stalk you and like put a tracker on your eyes, but that's probably illegal and it's a lot of trouble. I'm not doing it. It's just too much trouble. But I would encourage you to read it because you don't know. Also, you encountered, I think this was in the first week, you encountered a chapter that is not in the Old Testament, or a section that's not in the Old Testament, because this is not a retelling of the Old Testament. This is just Cephas's story of the history of the Jewish people, and he uses other sources besides the Old Testament, although it's primarily the Old Testament. Yeah, Ella.
I went to the library over the weekend, and I saw the Iliad and the Odyssey.
You checked them out and started reading them, right?
I thought about it. But then I
thought about it.
I'm not going to be able to read this in 2 weeks, and I don't know.
Could you raise your hand if you're in 8th grade this year? Okay. Because the Iliad and the Odyssey is next year for high school.
Oh.
Yes. They're reading them in the high school year. Next year is the literature of Greece.
That's going to take a little bit.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a big. It's almost half the year.
I also saw some of those like Euripides, like the playwrights, and then.
Boom.
Oh, I saw some more books by Josephus.
Excellent.
It was like in a deep basement of the library. It's kind of creepy.
In the deep basement?
And all the books, like all the pages were like ripped and the spine was like messed up.
Which library were you at?
In Muscatine.
Oh, in Muscatine.
The new one, like the brand new library.
The best places in libraries are the dark, dank, because you never know what treasures are. Okay, anyway, let's talk about the kings of Rome. So, what I'd like you to do, just because it keeps you focused and with me, and I think that when you write things down, you remember it, get out a piece of paper. And we're just going to list the 7 kings of Rome and jot down some of their leading characteristics, okay? I'm not asking you to memorize these, although if anyone wants to memorize the kings of Rome, that would be an awesome thing to do. I do not have, unfortunately, I am missing my map of Rome and my big map of Italy. I don't know where they are. I hope they were here. I've checked at the church office, and I will check back later. But maybe they're in I cleaned my library at home. I have a library in
You
my
have a
home.
library?
I do. My daughter moved out, and I converted her room into a library. Anyway, and I keep my maps and everything in there, and I looked and looked, but I cleaned, and I can't say that I didn't put them out of the way somewhere, and then I forgot I did that. We're hoping, because this was my last hope. And it's not here. Okay, so we'll have to make do with that. Our first king, we already met our first king, Romulus. Romulus
Killed his brother.
killed brother.
Yeah, just killed brother.
That's about all we have to say about him. And we're going to put after Romulus war, okay? We just have war and war and war. The guy is fighting everybody, bringing us to, let me grab your reading questions. Okay. First of all, I did not ask you a question about this, but does anybody recall where Romulus got people for his city? Okay, you build a city, but it needs people. Yeah, Alex.
He let pretty much anybody just come live in the city. Criminals, debtors.
Is that what you were going to say, Ella?
Well, as for this, this is about the wives.
No, I'll let you do the wives, okay? Yes, it said, Romulus encouraged all manner of men to settle there, and he made the city a sanctuary of refuge for all fugitives, where they received and protected all, delivering none back, neither the servant to his master, the debtor to his creditor, nor the murderer into the hands of the magistrate, saying it was a privileged place, and they could so maintain it by order of a holy oracle, insomuch that the city grew presently very populous. Hey, all you criminals on the run from the law, come live in my city. No, don't live in my city. It's not going to be a good city. I have a picture of a Wild West town in my mind, It's like just gunslingers, and except they didn't have guns, sword slingers, I don't know, having sword showdowns at high noon. Yeah, not good. Which leads us to the first question. You have this city full of criminals, and no offense, but they're men. Not that women never are criminals, but they were men, just say it. And nobody wants to marry your daughter off to the city of criminals.
Sure.
That's not what you aspire to for your daughter. So, we got to get wives somewhere, or we're just going to die out. Ella, tell us.
That Rome hosted a games in honor of Neptune, and so people came from neighboring countries. Is it?
Well, tribes. Tribes,
neighboring
yes.
Tribes, and brought their wives and their daughters, and then people of Rome just took them.
Yeah.
Sure.
On a prearranged signal, it's like, grab them. So everyone grabbed a woman and ran off into the city. What? Seriously. These were the Sabine. It was the tribe of the Sabines. So this is the kidnapping of the Sabine women. Sometimes you'll see, and this is kind of maybe we talked about this before. I don't think we did, because it brings up a word that we don't use the same anymore. You might see this in artwork. Rape. Rape means something different for us than it did for them. It comes from rapio, the Latin word which means snatch. Okay? So sometimes they call it the rape of the Sabine women means they're snatching them and running off, okay? So if you ever see that on artwork, there's a famous Renaissance poem called The Rape of the Lock, and he's stealing a lock of his loved one's hair, as a keepsake. But it's made as this mock epic, but it means snatching it away from rapio, like raptors, like velociraptors. Rapio, yeah. Hannah.
Have you guys seen Seven Brides for Seven Brothers?
I never have, but it's
like that.
It's like that,
They do
yes.
that.
So obviously, the Sabine dads and brothers and husbands aren't happy. And that's an understatement, right?
Sure.
So a war ensues. This goes on for some time, including the famous episode, which I did not ask you about, Tarpeia. She was the daughter of the guard up in the citadel, and she saw some Sabine soldiers, and she's like, yeah, I'll let you in for what you have on your left arms, because they have these gold bracelets on their left arms. Like, if you give me what you have on your left arms, I'll let you in. So she lets them in, and it just so happens they also carried their shields on their left arms. And they throw all their shields on top of her and crush her under the weight of their shield.
Well, now they're shipless.
Yeah, I guess they didn't care. I guess they thought they were taking them by surprise. I don't know. Good point, Ellen. They are shieldless. So, because even though she helped them, that's what they think of traitors to their country. Like, that's how traitors to anybody's country should be treated.
I mean, she asked for it.
She did ask for it, and she got what she asked for. And so there's this edge of this, where the citadel had a cliff, and they would throw traitors off the cliff in Rome, and it's known as the Tarpeian Rock. So sometimes you'll be reading Roman history, and they threw him off the Tarpeian Rock, and it's named for Tarpeia. You do not want something like that named after you. Good things named after you. But anyway, so the Sabine, they're still fighting, give us our women back, no we won't. So they say, here's the Romans and here's the Sabines, and they're gonna have a showdown. And the women rush out in between, and they hold up their arms and they say, oh please, stop fighting. We've come to love our Roman husbands, and we don't want our husbands to get hurt, and we don't want our fathers and brothers to get hurt, and let's just have peace. I have nothing to say about that. But the fugitive guys must have been nicer than we thought. I don't know. But so they made a truce. But the truce was that Romans only shouldn't get to rule. Sabines should get to help in the ruling, okay? Because if your city is half Sabine, if your women come from us and their children are half Sabine, we ought to have a say in the government. I said, okay. So Romulus took a co-Sabine ruler along with him, and there were 2 kings for a while, but he died. He's not important. We're not going to. Sorry. What a terrible way to go down history. Yeah, he's not important.
He died.
He's not important. An interesting thing, it starts here with the Sabines, and Dorothy Mills picks up on this. Their land was added to the Roman territory, and their inhabitants became Roman citizens. This was the beginning of the policy which made Rome great, for there was nothing that did more advance the greatness of Rome than that she did always unite and incorporate those she conquered into herself. In other words, it's not, we're the masters, we conquered you and we rule over you. It's, hey, let's all be Romans together. You're going to find out there's perks to Rome. We're good at things. We're wealthy. You can get a share of this. Come be Roman with us. And so you can see the difference, I'm sure. If Canada conquers us, all right, and they say we're ruling over you with an iron hand and you have to do what we say, that's one thing. If Canada says, oh, let's all be one big country together, let's just be friendly, maybe we wouldn't like it still, but I think you can see the difference between someone lording it over you and someone saying, let's just be equally Roman. And they kept doing that. This is what the empire is going to turn into. Till we get to New Testament times, and we have the Apostle Paul, right, who is a Roman citizen. The guy had never been to Rome before he got taken there because he appealed to the emperor. He lived in the East, but he was a Roman citizen. His parents were Roman citizens because he said he was born one. They granted special privileges all over the empire. and it made it stick together. Okay, so that's king number 1. So the end, let's talk about the end of Romulus. One day, Romulus went out talking with the senators. There were senators. Anybody learned the word senex in Latin? Senex is an old man. An old man.
What's that? What declension is that?
It's third declension.
If it's
Yeah.
weird, then it's third declension.
Yeah. Hello. Yes. All weird.
Soft rule.
Yes.
No, but
It's senex.
if it's old
Senex
man, then
senis. It's third declension.
Oh,
like that,
okay, that's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's
that would
important
rule
thing is
out,
it means old man.
actually, that would
Oh my
rule out
God.
feminine because that would be natural gender role. Think about it.
Yes.
It's old man. Means old man.
Hey, he's excited about Latin. I hate to damn that. The Senate literally were the old men. Why old men?
Because they had more life experience.
Because they have more life experience. It's okay.
And they also can't fight.
Hey, just because you're sitting in the front row, it doesn't
And also they
mean you
can't
get to
fight.
answer everything. And they can't fight. So they contribute with their brains
What if they can't?
instead of their brawn.
What if they can't?
Maybe they can. Maybe they're like,
Hey, maybe they can.
I don't
People
know.
live to 1,000 during those times. Hey,
No,
not 1,000, but like 200. Like,
well, not even that.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you
They-
sure? I
yeah.
mean, conquering, you like going into war, you could you could die, you know.
Yeah, this is true.
But you know, maybe 100.
Maybe 100. In the Roman Empire, maybe.
I mean, during Trojan War, we learn about people 40 years old going into war.
This
the
is
old
true.
men in the
This
war.
is
Yeah.
true. I mean, we have football. Our equivalent would be like Tom Brady. You know, I mean, 40-year-old football players. I mean, that's a wear and tear on your body. I realize they're not going to kill him, except people do get really seriously injured. Okay, that has nothing to do with children. Romulus went out with the senators, and the senators came back, and Romulus didn't. And the senators came back and said, "Oh, we were out there, and a voice came from heaven, and a cloud came down, and it just whisked Romulus away, and he's a god now." And some people said, "Ooh, he's a god now." And some people said, "I wonder what the senators did with his body after they murdered him." This did occur to people. And then a week later, one of the senators conveniently saw a vision of Romulus coming to tell them to dedicate a temple to him. And okay.
Maybe he was feeling bad for what he did.
Well, we have no idea. I mean, I don't believe Romulus was whisked away into a cloud. Okay, I don't believe that. Whether the senators did away with him or not, this came down in Roman history. I think Dorothy Mills tells us, you know, this, if you remember, we wrote this on our time, 753 BC. This is a long time ago. This is a really long time ago, and any written records that they had were destroyed in a fire. And so this was tradition. So what I'm telling you is the tradition. Okay. So, king number 2, Numa Pompilius. You got these nice names. If you ever, you know, grow up and have children and looking for baby names,
So
we got Romulus, we got Numa.
Numa.
Sounds like a girl, doesn't it? No offense, Numa. Numa Pompilius was Sabine. And the Romans agreed to have him be king because he was just such a good guy. He was so fair. In fact, he was such a good guy that he decided we just spend too much time fighting. And we're not spending enough time building ourselves up. He said, you know what, I'm gonna be of the peace party. I want to show the Romans that we don't have to be fighting all the time, that we can be prosperous in peace. And his claim to fame is religion. All right? He is the guy that basically founded the religion of Rome. They borrowed a lot, as the Romans are always going to borrow, from the Greeks. We know this because so many of the gods, like Zeus becomes Jupiter, and Hera becomes Juno, and Ares becomes Mars, and Poseidon becomes Neptune. But they had other gods that were Etruscan gods, these guys who lived in Italy before. One of them, Janus. He was an Etruscan god. Janus is that crazy guy. Oh, I can't. No, I'm not going to try. With two faces. They always portray Janus with a face pointing one way and then an opposite face, because he's the god of doorways, of entrances, where you can look back and you can look forward. What month is it this month? January. January is named for Janus because this is the month where we look back at the old year and forward towards the new. January. Janus had a temple in Rome, and the deal was that if the doors to the temple of Janus were open, Rome was at war somewhere. And when they closed the doors of the temple, it was a sign that all Romans everywhere were at peace. You can probably guess the doors were usually open. Doors were usually open.
Numa was king.
But not when Numa was king. And Augustus, who is the first real emperor of Rome, one of his claims to fame is he closed the doors to the temple of Janus. Peace. The Roman peace, the Augustan peace. So he did some other cool things like organized their months. I'm sure you guys learned this some time ago. October, November, December, September, 7, 8, 9, 10. Septem, Octo, Novum, Decem. Because those used to be the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th months. And then Julius Caesar has to get in on it and have July. And Augustus has to have August. And then they get bumped back. So months 7, 8, 9, and 10 are now 9, 10, 11, and 12. But they still are called 7, 8, 9, and 10. Maybe we should start a campaign to rename September through December. I don't think anybody's going to want to do that.
I don't know. Or maybe get rid of July and August.
My birthday's in August. Hello? Okay. Tullus Hostilius. Ooh, he's got a nice name.
Is that two L's
He,
or I?
that's 2 L's. I'm not being very neat. Back to a Roman. Remember, Roman, Sabine, Roman. He was the grandson of a Roman war hero in the War with the Sabines. It says here, convinced that the vigor of the state was becoming enfeebled through inaction, he looked all around for a pretext for getting up a war. Really? Okay, open that temple. Because we don't want to get lazy. Let's go fight somebody. Yeah, Ella.
Hostess means enemy in Latin.
And also you can think of Hostilius as hostile.
Hostile. Which comes from that same word.
I'm getting the idea that he wasn't
Yes.
very nice.
So he gets up a quarrel with
Probably got that last name.
Albans.
Probably got that last name from War Hero. Is probably the War Hero changed their name. Last name.
Oh, that's a good thought, because they did that. Romans often got a nickname, sort of, based on some exploit that you're going to read about in your reading for next week, a famous person who got a nickname. So the Albans, do you remember Aeneas? And he came and they founded Alba Longa, which was the the Albans were from there, so they're kind of like cousins of the Romans from hundreds of years back. But he gets up a fight with them. And, some people got together and said, when armies fight, lots of people die, and nobody's really the winner because everybody loses something. But single combat is always useful, right? Because only 2 people are in danger. Let's try that. Well, it just so happened that the Roman side had 3 brothers, and their last name was Horatius. So they were the Horatii, right? The plural, second declension plural, Horatius, Horatii. On the Alban side, there were 3 brothers, the Curiatius brothers, the Curiatii, right? And he said, how about 3 against 3? we'll just have this showdown. So they all get ready, see them around, they're watching the fight. And 6 guys come out, and they start fighting. Pretty quick, Horatius number 1 and Horatius 2 get killed. Horatius number 3 is left. But all 3 Curiatii get wounded. And Horatius number 3 says, okay, I can't take them all together, but I think I can take them one by one, and they're wounded. So he starts to run, and they're chasing him, but they come at different paces because, they're wounded, they're limping, whatever. And the first one comes up to him and he kills the first one. The second one catches up and he kills the second one. And now it's 1 to 1. The third one comes up and kills the third one, and he's victorious. Rome wins. And the remaining Horatius brother is the only one left. So everybody's, yay, we win. The Albans are now subject to us, except they're going to become part of us anyway, because that's what we do. He comes back in, and unfortunately, the Horatius brothers have a sister. And the sister had been engaged to one of the Curiatius brothers. Your brother just killed your fiance. And he comes in, and she's standing there, and she's like, okay, everybody's around her, yay, yay, and she's, my poor, husband-to-be. And her brother sees her weeping for the enemy and kills her.
Kills her.
Okay, now, this wasn't, no. So this was not okay with the Romans, and they arrested him. And they come and they're like, we're gonna accuse you of murder and execute you for murder. And then the dad comes. The dad of all the Horatius family comes and says, wait a minute, this guy just won the day for the Romans. He is the hero of the hour, and seriously, you're going to execute him? And then the dad says something over the top. He says, you know what? If he hadn't done it, I'd have done it myself.
Oh, wow.
Because no one should grieve for the enemies of Rome.
Your sister or your daughter.
Yeah. I hope you're getting a feel for the flavor of these people. Remember that we talked about the fact, maybe it might be in this coming week's reading. She's going to mention attention to duty, discipline, and attention to duty. Remember we talked about the fact that here's the Romans surrounded by hostile tribes. And the only way you can live, the only way you can survive is to do your duty. It's like soldiers in battle, right? If every soldier just decides to follow his own rules and make his own mind up, it's disaster. You've got to be disciplined, and you've got to follow orders, and you've got to do your duty, or it all falls apart. And so, to the point of turning on members of your own family, you're going to be reading about another notorious example of that, too. This next time. Okay, so let's put the Horatii and the Curiatii under him. Horatii and Curiatii. And then I'll put it up here. See, I'm kind of running out of room, but. Okay, king number 4. Ancus Marcius, or Ancus Marcius, as you please. Another Sabine. Numa was his grandpa. So, and he had his grandpa's sensibilities about war and peace. He wanted to go back. I have very little to say about him. Unfortunately, some of them get these really cool stories, and some of them are. We're going to call it religious revival. You know, we're out there fighting. We're not paying attention to the gods that Grandpa dedicated Rome to, and we need to go back and do that. One claim to fame, I guess, is spreading out the walls of Rome, enclosing, remember those 7 hills? All right, closing more of the 7 hills. If I had my big map and I had lost it somewhere, we'd look at the map. Maybe it'll come up next week. Don't know. Okay.
There is a map in the book.
There is a map in the book. It's got a map of Rome in the book. Yeah, it's not too bad. I guess on page 47, kind of shows you, it doesn't say which, it's got walls, but it doesn't say which king. It says he occupied the Capitoline Hill, Massilian, 47 in my book. But you can see those 7 hills labeled. So, oh, that's okay, that's okay. Okay, king number 5, Tarquinius Priscus. We had a Roman and a Sabine and a Roman and a Sabine. Tarquinius Priscus is Etruscan. He's not even one of them. He came in just kind of not a slave, but a low-class nobody. I hate to say it like that. That sounds very snobbish, but that's who he was. He wasn't anybody of note, but he was very, very talented and had charisma. You know what I mean by that? Like somebody that people just like. Somebody that is able to influence people to do what they want just because they have a nice personality. He was one of those. And he and his wife, Tabernacle, were coming into Rome, and an eagle landed on Tarquinius, and then it flew off again. Remember those Etruscans? They were so into these bird omens, right? We saw birds flying on the left or the right, and it means something good or bad. And Tabernacle said, oh, you are destined for greatness. There is a greatness about you, and our fortune is going to be made in Rome. And he pretty much, I don't know, worked his way up through the ranks, got important positions, till he ended up king. Ended up being chosen king. It says Dorothy Mills tells us, for the first time, one of the things he did, for the first time, a space was marked for what was known afterwards as the Circus Maximus. You know, the oval, I'm sure you've probably all seen the oval racetrack. Have you seen Roman pictures with an oval racetrack? And they would, usually there'd be an open space, or an island space in the middle, and they would race chariots around. Or the foot races, things like that. Very early on, sports, important in Rome.
It's usually a lot wider. Because
Well,
there's
yeah,
chariots.
this is not to scale. This was not, no, not to scale. I should write that underneath. It'll be really long and very skinny. Unfortunately, Tarquin is war. We don't stay peaceful very long, do we?
I mean, it seems to be a pattern: war, peace, war, peace.
It does. And I wonder if there, can you think of a reason for that?
They don't like wars.
Yeah.
They
Simeon.
They get tired of wars, and then they want peace, and then they get tired of peace.
Yeah, I wonder if it's, I don't know, I hate to say boredom, but, you know, like, oh, we're so worn out with one thing, let's try the other. And then a generation passes, yeah, that got boring, let's do something else. I'm sure it was more involved than that, but I don't know that that's not a factor of it. I'm just kind of ignoring our, that's okay, we're answering them all. During Tarquin's rule, there was a slave boy named Servius Tullius, and something very odd happened to the slave boy. Yeah, Alex.
while he was sleeping one night, the queen came in and saw his head on fire, but he wasn't burning.
His head was on fire. That's very odd. Yeah, Ella? Oh, no, that's okay, that's okay.
His head was on fire.
And they were gonna get a bucket of water and dump it on him, which was like a good plan to me. But she says, no, wait and see what happens. But apparently she got the memo that it looked supernatural. I don't know. But they didn't put it out. It went out of its own accord, and he wakes up and says, what happened? And she, Tabernacle, says to her husband, we need to keep an eye on him because there's something great about him. You know, she's the one who saw the eagle, and apparently she's the chief forecaster of the palace. We need to keep an eye on him. Let's bring him up as if he is destined for a high station. All right, he may just be a slave boy now, but let's make sure he gets the education and the upbringing, the training that he needs to equip him for the greatness that I think he's destined for. And sure enough, he ends up being the next king.
So is he peace or war?
He's basically peace. Although we're getting to the point where when I say peace, it's not as if they're not fighting anyone, because all of this time they are surrounded. So here's Rome. They're surrounded by tribes, some of which have been absorbed, but some of whom aren't real happy for their neighbor getting stronger and stronger and stronger. It scares them. So they're constantly having challenges. But he was more about organization. And by that I mean he looked at the Roman people and he divided them up into groups, into tribes, for administrative purposes and tax purposes. He's the first one who divided them into groups of 100 called centuries, because centum means 100. Yeah, Alex.
He also wasn't he the first one to do a census of the Roman people?
Yes. Enlarged the city. A very capable man. However, follow this. Tarquin and Tabernacle had sons. I think you know where I'm going already.
Yep.
And when a slave boy gets to be king instead of you, now, never mind the fact that none of these guys passed it down to their son. It was an elective position. It wasn't a hereditary monarchy. You know, I'm king and my son gets to be king. It wasn't like that. But it was just insulting that some slave kid gets adopted into my family and treated like family and then gets to be elected king. And it ended up very badly. So, last king. I don't know if you can see this. Oh, we're going to put him up above, because these are important. Tarquinius, I'll put his Latin name. Tarquinius Superbus. That's supposed to be a U.
What's his English name?
Tarquin the Proud. Superbus means proud or haughty. He is Tarquin the Proud. He,
I'm guessing he was war.
what?
Definitely,
Yes. You can put
definitely
war, death,
yes.
war, meanness. Okay. He's the son of Tarquinius Priscus. And he is, no, wait a minute. I'm sorry. He's the
Hold on.
grandson. Okay, he was married to Servius Tullius's daughter. Servius Tullius married his daughters to the sons of that wouldn't be the right, because that would be the wrong generation. It has to be the grandsons. All right, you know what? It's not important. Sorry, I can't remember all the family histories of everybody in history. Okay, but Servius Tullius married daughters to the family of Tarquin, all right? And one of them said that's not good enough. And he conspired with his wife Tullia against her own dad. Against her own dad. And they went to the Senate house, and Tarquin the Proud marches in, and he just sits down in his father-in-law's chair, the king's chair, and his Servius Tullius comes in. What is this? They beat him around a little bit and throw him down the Senate stairs and leave him for dead.
Oh.
Then he tells, who did you say?
Servius.
Yeah, they leave Servius Tullius for dead, the king, the current king. Then he tells his wife, Servius's daughter, go home because, you know, we got man stuff to do. I don't know. So she gets in the chariot and she runs it over her dad's body on the way out.
She's getting cold for Christmas.
What is wrong with
Yeah.
these people?
Man! And then begins a reign of terror. That's extreme. Okay, a not so good reign. Now, when first of all, two stories about Tarquin the Proud. Story number one: one day an old lady came to him with some books. Okay, for me, I buy books. There's a famous quote. Yeah, there's a famous quote from a Renaissance thinker named Erasmus, and he says, "When I have money, I buy books, and if I have any left, I buy some food and clothes." Yeah. Okay. So she said, "I have 9 books. Here's the price," and it was a large price. And he said, "I want your books." She burns 3 of them in front of him. She says, "I have 6 books. Same price." Burns 3 more of them. "I have 3 books. Same price." So at this point, he gets a little interested. He realizes this lady is one of the Sibyls. The Sibyls were the Roman equivalent of the oracles. All right, like the Delphic oracle. In Rome, they called them the Sibyls. Cumae, like Delphi was the important Greece oracle. Cumae was the name of the town, was the important Sibyl, where people went and consulted the Sibyl. And apparently, there had been prophecies about the future of Rome given to the Sibyl. I have nothing to say about that, about the validity of, don't know. And these books were full of the prophecies, and of course, it would be handy to know, some of the prophecies. And at this point, he realizes he better take the 3 books. When he realizes what he's got, and he did. And they put originally it was 10 people, and then they upped it to 15 people who only they were allowed to consult the Sibylline books. But sometimes when there was a crisis, when there was a problem, they get together, let's consult the Sibylline books and see if they say anything about this. Who knows what were in those books she burned?
Maybe it's the same thing just over and over
Maybe
again.
there was nothing.
And maybe that's why she was
Maybe
really
like-
eager. to learn.
Maybe, we don't know.
Perhaps
We
there
don't
was
know.
absolutely nothing, and it was simply a trick.
But there were literal Sibylline books, because in historic times, they were consulted, they were talked about. In fact, the church fathers, I'm reading through some of the early church fathers, and the one guy I've just been reading talks a lot about things in the Sibylline books that have confirmed the gospel, which is interesting. I have nothing to, I don't know. But I'm just saying, they did exist. The story about the lady burning them, we don't know, but they did exist. So that was the important thing, one of the important things that happened. He acquired the Sibylline books. But he had a son, Sextus Tarquinius. And he had buddies, like young men do. And one of his buddies was named Collatinus, and another one was named Brutus. And they would hang out and decided once that they would go see the oracle, they would travel to Greece and go to Delphi. And they wanted to know which one of them would be important in Rome next, you know, after Tarquin. Of course, Sextus Tarquin, whose dad is king, it's going to be me. And the oracle says, whichever one of you kisses his mother first will have great influence in Rome. So they all rush home as fast as they can to kiss their mothers, except for Brutus, who realizes the earth is the mother of us all, and he pretends to trip and fall down on his face and kisses the ground. Kissed his mother first. Anyway, so they go home, and they're hanging out. They're in the military camp. You know, they're hanging around the campfire, whatever, talking about their wives, talking about their women, how great their women are. She's so pretty. She's great. She does everything great. And Collatinus, I think it was Collatinus, said, oh, my wife, Lucretia, she's the best. If we go home right now, because they weren't very far away, they were just like a few miles out. All this was, all these wars were happening very close together. If we go home, I bet she won't be partying with her girlfriends or anything. She'll be working at her loom, she'll be spinning yarn, she'll be doing her household tasks. And they went and just kind of dropped in, and she was. Just a lovely woman, busy with her household tasks like a good Roman woman should be. You win, your wife's awesome. But Sextus Tarquin thought she was a little more than awesome. And he came back, snuck back, and this time he raped her, not snatch. Okay? So she, from our perspective, you say, well, it's not her fault. But it was a disgrace. It was a dishonor on her. So she has a dinner party, very small dinner party. Her husband, Brutus, is there, some other guys. She gets up after dinner and tells the story. And then she just stabs herself right in front of him and kills herself. You're going to love this semester. After crying out to be avenged. Brutus takes this very seriously. And Brutus gets together, obviously Lucretia's husband. They drive the Tarquin family out of Rome. King's stake. That is not a direct quote. We hate kings. This is what kings do. And we don't do that anymore. We don't have kings here. Brutus is going to have a descendant after several hundred years, also named Brutus, who is going to be called upon to do a similar deed. If you don't already know what I'm talking about, remember. This is his descendant, or this is his great-great-great-grandpa, which Brutus. Same family. And that's why they're going to call upon a later Brutus, say, your great-great-great-grandpa did it. You do it. We don't have kings in Rome. Or whatever the case may be. Your method of choice. So, please get your timeline out, because we're going to add one of the important dates in Roman history is throwing out of the kings.
Throwing out of the kings.
Isn't this fun? Aren't these stories awesome?
Yes.
If you liked today, next week's just going to be even better.
Oh man.
Did she just say wait until next week?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh
It's
man.
kind of interesting
It's
to
really
see
happening.
how
Okay, so you should have a timeline that has 1000 BC at the top and 500 at the bottom. And you've already had to have some things on there, like the founding of Rome, right, 753 BC. Did we put that on there?
Lycurgus gives Spartan laws.
Lycurgus gives laws. The first Olympics, 776. Okay, and we did put 753, right?
Yes.
Okay, so down towards the bottom, we have 509. 509. Rome throws out her kings.
It's a her now?
Cities are usually her. It's one of the, and both.
Roma,
It's-
Roma.
Yes, it's one of the few things that we, in English, refer to as in a gendered way. Your Latin, you know, like everything is, like chairs are feminine and it's
Really
just
annoying.
tables are feminine.
Yeah,
It's
so
weird.
announcements are men.
And
so
you know what?
else.
This is
Yeah.
funny. Virtus, which means manliness or courage, is feminine. Nice joke. Okay, sorry.
Wait, it's fourth.
It's third, virtus, virtutus.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're right.
then.
You are right.
Oh.
Sorry,
Okay.
sorry. My grade today's
That's okay.
It's gone.
So,
who's
so
on
from,
front?
I'm gonna put this back up here, even though you have it, from 753 to 509, they had kings. Let's just do a little 4, 4, 2. 244 years of kings. I just subtracted.
Oh, I thought you were crossing, I thought you were
Yeah,
changing the
no,
number.
No,
Me too.
I'm doing a little subtraction problem. 244 years, you do not have to write the 200, I'm just, for our edification and interest, noting that for almost 250 years, which think about, we've been a country for about 250 years. Right, roughly, I mean, not exactly, but in your math class, you can, if somebody's math inclined, but, so for as long as we've been the United States, they had kings. But no more. So next week, let me pass out your, you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna pass them back again. It's chapter 6, parts 1 through 3. Do I need to write that on the board, or is everybody okay with the fact that it's on the top of the paper?
Yeah, that works.
Everybody gets that? Okay. So just take and pass back.
245 years.
Oh.
Exactly.
Oh, for us?
Yes.
See? Wow.
Ooh. Dictator. Whoa. Uh-oh.
Why are you saying that?
Not good.
Oh.
Left-handed. Whoa, respecting left-handed people now? Yes. Yes, I don't feel so bad
Yes,
anymore.
well, I don't know.
Nice.
Wait till you see what happens. Oh, we have to.
Yes.
I said I was gonna read the 7 Hills every week, and I was gonna make a copy, but I didn't do it, so sorry, but I'll read it again. Rome was built on 7 hills. Each hill had a name. See if you can learn them. Pretend that it's a game. The Viminal, the Aventine, the Quirinal, the Esquiline. To these please add the Palatine, the Caelian, the Capitoline. Rome was built on 7 hills, and so begins the story of the famous Roman Empire and its eternal glory. Let's see if we can, the Viminal, the Aventine, the Quirinal, the Esquiline. To these please add the Palatine, the Caelian, the Capitoline. We need a mnemonic
Brackets.
device. Very awkward, quiet elephants play chess
And checkers.
and checkers.
No,
And
play.
checkers.
Chess and checkers.
Why don't we make it a specific type of chess? The first one.
Play crazy chess.
Crazy chess. There we go. Crazy.
Very awkward, quiet elephants play crazy chess.
Play crazy chess.
You know what? Work
There,
on it this
keep
week.
it. No,
Maybe
keep
you
it.
can come
Keep it
up
up
with
there.
one that's better than that.
I like that.
Yeah, we don't have another good one. Most of these are like empire. They're not. Oh, let's do Roman numerals. Are we all familiar with Roman numerals?
Yeah.
Some letters led a double life. They served as numbers too. They used a simple system. The numerals were few. For 1, you used the letter I. For 5, the letter V. L was 50, X was 10, 100 was a C. The system had its problems, though, when numbers got too high, and Romans weren't able to divide or multiply. Their numbers were useful, but it's very clear to me that we are served much better by our numbers 1, 2, 3. You ever think about, you could do long division with,
We could do D.
Gee.
well,
What are you talking about?
so,
D is 500.
So.
Well, vowel?
And then M is a thousand.
they couldn't include them all. Okay. All right, moving on to our Josephus reading. When are we done? Seriously, are we done at 10:05? Something like that?
Yeah.
How does this happen?
We have so much time.
Always feels like it just zips by.
Oh.
Last week, we were talking about the plagues being judgments on Egypt's gods. And I told you I had a paper about it. Well, it's made for kids younger than you, so I'm not trying to insult you with this. And I didn't have just a chart or a list. It was supposed to be a game, so, and I apologize, my printer was acting up. But they have like a plague on this side and then a god on this side, and you were supposed to draw, connect them, but I gave you the answer key. So don't look at the answer key if you want to try it, or if you just don't care and you just want to. So it connects.
Stop showing us.
I'm not looking at it.
So I'll give it to you with the answers down. Here, I'll give them. Okay. I'm not, and just, you can look at that in your own time. We're not going to take time to go over
Wow,
that, but I
this
think
is a little gimmick.
it's an interesting
Ethan, how many did you take?
take on it, because we always just think of it as being mean to Egypt. And it was bad for Egypt, but it was also more than just mean to Egypt. It was targeted to tell them, you aren't God. Okay, so we had you read, is that for, is there just one left over, or?
There's 2 questions and 2 that.
No, unless we made too many.
Oh, don't we have 2 people missing?
I'm sorry?
Don't we have 2 people missing?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, yes, we do. Isabella's not here either, is she? Which means that Gabby's not gonna be here for high school. Probably.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm glad I brought my apparatus to record. So we started with the entry into the promised land in your reading. I know you're distracted because you want to look at that thing, but is that like nod yes? You started with the entry of the promised land, we ended with David and Goliath in that period. And I kind of came down hard on Kyle and said, read it. But I do know that most of these stories are very familiar to you, and I'm not going to retell you the entire story of the Old Testament because you're perfectly capable of knowing that for yourself. But there are just a couple of things I wanted to bring out. One is the period of the judges after they came into the Promised Land. Well, first of all, before we get that, I brought my little map. I hope you guys can see. What do we mean when we talk about the tribes of Israel? Like, where do they originate? And yeah, Hannah, do you think?
It's the, no, never mind.
That's okay. Does anybody, because there's the 12 tribes of Israel.
Is it the 12 sons of Jesse?
Of
No, that's right.
Jacob.
Jacob.
Yes, that J. Start with the J. Yes, remember Jacob had 12 sons. And these sons became the forefathers of 12 separate tribes, which is not exactly true, because there is no tribe of Joseph. This gets a little confusing. There's 12 tribes of Israel, but there's actually 13 tribes. Joseph was living in Egypt, and he had 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And they each got a tribe. So there's actually 13. But the Levites, the tribe of Levi, don't get any land in the new.
That's crazy because on Sunday we were studying the book of Joshua in church, and we just learned about how the Levites, they got like God.
They got God. So I brought, this is not very helpful. I have another one of these. See, I'm off on the maps this week. I have another one of these that has the tribes listed on it where they settled. But when they came into the promised land, they crossed the Jordan River here, each tribe got allotted a place, an area. And it just so happens that in the south part was primarily Judah and Benjamin. And north were the other tribes, all right? This becomes important in Israelite history. But they divided them up. God told them, this is where each tribe is going to live. And when they went into the promised land, and you know, Moses died before they went in. Eventually Joshua and Caleb died, and then that entire generation was gone. They had issues. And a lot of times, this is referred to as the cycle of the judges cycle, okay? You know, I think it's ice and stuff falling. I keep hearing that at my house. Could be, I don't, there is no room over there, right?
No.
I think so. So they're prosperous. You don't have to write this down, okay? They're prosperous. And then they get lazy. And they worship other gods. And then God sends an oppressor, all right? He sends one of the surrounding peoples against them. And they cry out to God. God sends a judge who's usually has some military, you know, is head of a military operation to get rid of the oppressor. And then there's peace, which leads to prosperity, and they do it again. And the book of Judges, they just keep cycling. It says, and the people forsook God and went to other gods. So he raised up the Midianites, he raised up the Ammonites, he raised up the, you know, the tribe of the generation. And it happened over and over and over again. And I guess my only observation here is that I'd like to say I'm so much better than they are, but I cannot say that I don't become lazy and complacent when things are good. And I don't go worship at altars to false gods, but anything I give more attention and love to that's not God is my idol, is my false god. I can't say I don't do this sometimes. So, I mean, from our perspective, they look like idiots. What? But maybe no more of an idiot than I am. Every time I forget all the good things God has done for me, every time a new crisis.
And when Pastor talks about it, then cry out to God.
Yes.
Sure.
But then, and yes, and then I become complacent all over again. So unfortunately, this happens. Who is David's great-grandmother? King David? Oh my gosh, this is a trivia question. I'm gonna use my math again for this too. She has a whole book of the Bible all for her.
Ruth.
Ruth. Is Ruth an Israelite? No. Ruth is a Moabite. She's not even an Israelite. Remember, there was a famine in the land, and Elkanah is Hannah's husband. Elimelech. Thank you. And Naomi. And Naomi. Starts with E. I knew. And Naomi, his wife, went to live in Moab, and their son's married to Moabite girls, and all the men died. Elimelech died, the two sons died, and she's left with two daughters-in-law, one of whom stays and one of whom Ruth says the famous, where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. And she comes and she gets the honor, just of being David's great-grandma, but the ancestress of whom? Jesus. There was another lady, famous woman in the Old Testament, who joined up with the Israelites, but she wasn't an Israelite. What? Esther was Jewish.
Wait a minute. It was.
I'm thinking before that.
Was it during the time of the judges?
Before Jericho, she lived in Jericho.
Rachel?
No.
You're so
Rebecca.
close.
No.
Rahab.
It was an R.
Rahab, who was a Canaanite woman who hid the spies and said, when you take the city, don't kill my family. And they said, hang a red cord out the window, keep all your people inside, you'll be safe. So sometimes we think of, Jesus came in the New Testament and it opened up salvation to all peoples. But the Israelites were always a light to the nations. There were huge numbers of people coming in and joining them. It says in the Bible, some Egyptians joined them. Not only Israelites left Egypt with the Israelites.
Where does it say?
You have to, it has to be in Exodus. Right? It's just an offhand comment somewhere that I never noticed we're writing this down. Give me a pen. I'm stealing. Okay.
Not stealing.
It isn't.
Egyptians with Israelites in Exodus. I need to write it. Once I wrote myself a note like this and I got home and I had no idea what it meant. I had no idea what I was supposed to look up. Okay, because if I'm wrong, I will say,
All right.
you were right and I was wrong, and that is why I sing this song. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the center of Israelite worship. In the desert, God gave very, very precise instructions to build a large tent, the tabernacle, which in the reading you're going to do, for this next week, you heard about Solomon building the temple, which is the permanent version of the tabernacle. Tabernacle is a tent. Tabernacle as a verb means dwell with. This is the place where God was going to live with them. And this is also the reason that Leviticus is kind of not very exciting to read and part of Numbers, because not only is it all the ceremonial laws that they were to observe, but the dimensions and construction of the tabernacle. I printed out for you guys a diagram of the tabernacle. Now, you've maybe done this in Sunday school, and you're like, oh, I know all about that. But some people don't. And it's interesting because this is going to be the center of their worship for 1,500 years. Except for the 70 years in Babylon, when they're in exile. And then they come back and they rebuild the temple. So I want you guys to all take, here, you can pass back so we can talk. Oh, here, just give me one, because there's going to be one for Lauren. Oh, and there's going to be one for Isabel. I'm sorry? I do not know. I didn't check my email this morning, so I don't know, but anyway, I'll send them a link to the recording, and it's better than nothing. It wasn't the greatest, it didn't come out, it's kind of dark there on the left, but how many of you feel like you've done studies of the tabernacle and you know all this, you're good with, okay. But most people, okay. But some of you, this is new, so.
Very new.
Oh, you don't.
I knew the outline of the tabernacle, but
Well, how did okay, send paper back to Jacob. I don't know. Oh, do you not have one?
I don't have one.
Okay, I don't know what I was thinking. What? Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know why I have lost the ability to count, along with losing my maps. So who does not have one? Just Alice?
I have mine.
I mean,
I've already seen it.
Yeah, I've already seen
I
one.
can just share with you.
Okay, okay. I was gonna say, I can email, if anybody wants one, I can email.
Oh.
If anybody wants, does anybody want me to email them one?
Yes, please.
I'm good.
Okay.
It's better than paper anyway.
What?
I said, yes, please, it's better than paper.
No, if you've got a paper, I'm not.
Oh.
Well, if it's just on your computer, you're never gonna look at it. Anyway, I wanted you to have it in front of you.
Computer more than I use this.
You should use real paper. That's the only time I'm gonna say that. It's much better. Hard copies are always better than computer. It sticks in your mind better. Okay, then done.
That is true.
Okay. So, the layout of the tabernacle, by the way, it always faced towards the east. Direction was important. And interestingly, up until the Reformation, churches always faced east. Like you worship towards the east. That's the way it was. Because the rising sun. Jesus is the rising sun. It was symbolic. The arrangement of churches, cathedral, well this is medieval times, you probably know where it's shaped like a cross from above, facing east. Worship was directed towards the east. Anyway, so they had a particular direction. They had to pitch the tabernacle. You know, they take it apart. They carry the pieces. When they camp, they erect it again. And the tribes would camp around it in a specific way. 3 on each side. And it was designated. You 3 tribes there, you 3 tribes there. So you have a big outer tent. And basically what's in this tent is a big basin of water and an altar. A basin of water for the priests, the Levites, to wash their hands.
A basin of laver?
Yes, a brazen laver, yes, means made of brass. Brazen means made of brass, and lava means wash, right? A place to wash. And to wash the pieces of the animals that they sacrifice, you know, to wash because they were very specific. Sometimes it was, you know, if you've read Leviticus, and they put the thigh and and then the Levites get to eat part of it. They did it all day, every day. All day. People are bringing sacrifices because they have sinned. People are bringing thank offerings because they're happy and they want to offer thanks to God. Some offerings were just food, like there were grain offerings. There were drink offerings. But sin offerings were always blood, because the wages of sin is death. When we sin, something has to die. And until Jesus came, it was animals. And so, if you had a baby, you know, your firstborn son, you go to the tabernacle and you give an offering. We see Mary and Joseph coming to the temple. It was haunted. I think it's ice.
Yeah.
To offer doves, pigeons.
Yeah,
It was the offering if you weren't wealthy enough to afford the normal offering.
Wait, why? Why would I do that for kids?
It kind of sounds like it makes you unclean to have a baby, and there was an uncleanness involved, but it's more the fact that when God redeemed them from Egypt, the firstborn in every Egyptian family died. And God said to Israel, "You are my firstborn, and the firstborn of everything belongs to me. I redeemed you out of that plague." The firstborn of every animal got sacrificed. The firstborn boy of every human being got redeemed. An offering was offered in his place. Because he belongs to God.
Firstborn
Because of they survived the firstborn plague. I think it was son, Kyle. I don't think I'm sorry ladies, but I think it only had son. Then there was the actual building And it had 2 rooms. The holy place and the Holy of Holies. So the Israelites could come in here, obviously, or you couldn't bring your offerings in. Only priests, only Levites went in here. And there were 3 things, and I don't know if I'm putting them in the right place, but on one side were the lights. You've probably seen one of these. Okay, that is really not very good.
It looks like an umbrella, but upside
Yes,
down.
it does. It's called a menorah. Jews call it a menorah today, and it generally there's candles in each one. It would have been. It had platforms. It had platforms, and you put lamps there, and they kept lamps burning before the presence of God. That's one of the jobs of the Levites. They have an altar of incense. You're all familiar probably with incense. You've been in those stores where they have the incense sticks. I don't think it was in the form of sticks, you know what I mean, but and they would always have incense burning before the Lord. And a table with 12 loaves of bread. That was only 10. Okay, the showbread, yes, or the shewbread or showbread, 1 for each tribe. I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. And in Revelation, we hear in John's vision of the throne room, and the prayers of the saints came up, and they were incense before the presence of God. Which is why many churches have traditionally had candles and incense in the church. Okay, but the back room, we have a curtain. The back room has 1 thing in it. And only 1 person gets to go in once a year. That's it. It's the Holy of Holies. The high priest gets to go in once a year on the Day of Atonement. All the people come, and they have fasted and repented and come before God, and the high priest takes 2 goats. And one of them, and this, it sounds odd to us, but he prays and he puts his hands on the goat, and he gives the goat all their sins. Like mystically, you are the sin bearer, and they drive it away out of the camp. God has removed their sins. The other one they sacrifice. And that one day, they take a branch, they take a brush, and the high priest goes into this box, and he sprinkles the blood on the box.
On it or in it?
On it.
Ark of the Covenant?
Yes, on top of
You're not
the
actually
Ark of
supposed to
the
look inside
Covenant.
of it. You're not even
No,
supposed to
they
touch
don't
it.
look in, unless God would so direct them, and it would be only the high priest.
And you're not even supposed to touch it.
No, because Uzziah touched it, and Uzzah. Yeah.
Wasn't there like one time when they were moving the tabernacle when the Ark of the Covenant began to slip off one of the oxen, one of the men ran out to catch it before it fell, and he got struck dead.
Yeah,
because
they
he
were.
touched it.
Do you remember? Did we talk about the fact when the Philistines captured the ark? Do you remember Eli? Eli was the high priest at the time, and the Philistines captured the ark, and the ark. They would put it in their temples, and their gods would keep falling over in front of it. Like in his head and his hands came off. Dagon, their god, which I love. I love that story. It's hilarious. And they said, we're sending this back. And they said, we're going to put it on a cart, and then we're going to hook up. Don't forget where you want to say, Ella. Okay. We're going to hook it up to a cow that's recently had a baby. So it would normally want to go to its baby, right? But if it doesn't, if it just takes the ark on the cart straight back to the Israelite territory, we'll know this was from God. And that's what it did. So in that case, they peeked in, and some of them got killed. The other time was when they were moving it. David wanted to move it to Jerusalem, and they were moving it on a cart, and the poor guy was behind the cart, and it bumped, and he was afraid it was going to slide out, and he steadied it with his hand, and he fell down dead. Which seems unfortunate, because he wasn't trying to do something bad. I'm sure it was an instinct, but God had to show them, this is a holy thing. I'm a holy God and this is a holy thing. This is serious. You don't mess with the holy things. Yeah, Ellen.
Not like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
And the Nazis.
Which is a very well done movie because if
Wait, are
the
we
Ark
talking
were
about,
launched into a bunch of
Indiana
Nazis,
Jones?
Yes.
It's okay.
No,
I was
it's
just
not.
joking. I
You know
just
it
watched
would.
that like a week ago.
do you know? Do you know?
Yeah.
I've never seen, I've never opened my eyes when their faces melt off. I just.
Oh, really? It is so fake.
Okay.
It is.
So, the Ark of the Covenant has the tablets of stone that Moses brought down from the mountain, a jar of manna to remember, so generations forward, as a remembrance that God fed them, and Aaron's staff. Remember, everybody was, oh, why does Aaron get to be in charge? Aaron and Moses think they're just it, but
Oh, yeah.
I'm good too. And God said, okay, all of you bring each tribe gets a staff, lay it out before God, and Aaron's staff grew almonds and flowers overnight, and it wasn't even attached to the tree, which is odd, to say the least. And so Aaron's staff that budded, they put it in the ark too. Yeah, Ella.
So, okay, so they don't know where the Ark is now, or?
There are speculations. It's a fascinating subject I'm fascinated by it. Because I believe it's a copy of something in heaven. Like, all of this is a copy of something in heaven. In a way we don't understand. But this isn't random. God didn't just randomly, oh, I think it'd look nice if it looked like that. This means something in heaven. And this obviously meant something very, very big. And so and you guys know enough of the history, the Babylonians are going to deport the Israelites and destroy Solomon's temple. And we know they take a lot of the furnishings with them because remember the handwriting on the wall guy? Belshazzar, and it said they were feasting using the golden and silver dishes from the temple of God. Nope. But it doesn't mention the ark, and so there are even people who think it's in Africa. There are people who think it got, like there were escapee priests from the fall of Jerusalem that carted off to Ethiopia. There's a guy who believes there's a cavern dug in the rock under the Temple Mount, and there's a secret cavern under there, and the ark is in there. My personal opinion is that it doesn't exist on earth anymore. That God removed it. That either he withdrew his presence, because it's only holy because it's God's, right? God makes things holy, and he can make anything he wants to holy. God's presence makes it holy. And so he withdrew, and then it wasn't holy anymore, and they melted it down, or, with impunity, God didn't strike him down for it. Or he just, he did it to Elijah, right? He did it to Enoch. I don't know why he couldn't just remove it. But it has occurred to me, in the end times, when it gets bad and we have an Antichrist, and what if somebody brings out the Ark of the Covenant? See, that would be real.
But it's like different, like a new one.
I mean, if you could touch it, then it's not holy.
Then it's not holy.
Maybe like the Pope is.
Oh, I didn't tell you what to read. Would you please read chapters 39 through 65?
Through 65?
Yeah, don't
Whoa.
be afraid. I divided this up by page numbers, so not by chapters, so it's about the same amount. So I want you to do another 5 census paper for me. It can just be a paragraph. I have the story of the shepherd boy and the wolf. I'm sorry, it's so huge. It makes you look like you're 2 years old. This came out of actually a children's book that I've had all my life. It's a set of books, and this is one of my favorite stories. So, or sometimes it's known as The Boy Who Cried Wolf. If you don't know the story, you can read it. Here's what I want you to do. Pick a moment in the story. Because remember, if you're telling what do they see, hear, feel, smell, taste,
39.
you can't do the whole story because they're going to see different things and smell different things. But pick one moment in the story of one character.
Just one.
And tell me. Now, if you're into it, pick another character. Because you got the shepherd boy. You've got the wolf. You've got the sheep. You could pick a
I'm gonna
sheep.
do all three
You
of
could
them.
pick those poor villagers who keep running back and forth every time he screams wolf, wolf. You could do all four, I mean, hey, go for it. But they don't have to be connected in a story. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're doing a snapshot in time. Okay, we have 3 questions. Kyle first.
Okay, I did not do exactly a snapshot. I did like, the ant woke up, he stretched, and he walked over and he saw the grasshopper. It's that few moments.
Okay, okay, that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah, not like a snapshot that they use.
I didn't do
Okay,
Snapchat
that's fine.
either.
Alice.
Is it another thing about why, or we're just telling them that now?
No, this is, it's just the senses. Yeah, just tell the moment. Describe it, like you're describing a picture.
Like touch, colon, what did you touch? Like that?
Yes, except try not to say, and he touched this, and he smelled this. Do you remember my example where I said, and the first sight that greeted his eyes, or he heard the, yes. Like my example that I gave you with the tortoise and the hare, the 5 senses, another one of those. Jacob.
Can I have both, can I do both 2 of the characters but in the same setting?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
What is this on the top? This
I-
like black thing?
I think it's,
Looks like a dragon.
yeah, I don't know.
Oh, can I have my paper back?
That's like a blob
Once you're,
one.
once you read it.
Yes,
Thank you.
I will pull it out of the sack.
Thank you. Because
Okay.
I would like to tell everybody how great a grasshopper is.
So, goodbye,
Oh,
goodbye to
interesting. I don't
Isabella.
care.